Hello YouTube, Dave here again. One of my favorite accessories for the Dungeons & Dragons role-playing game has always been the Dungeon Master screen, ever since the first one I ever bought, back when I was running 3.5 D&D. So I've got quite a few different Dungeon Master screens, but we're not really here to talk necessarily about the ones that I own, that I've previously owned. I'm here to actually talk about the brand new Dungeon Master screen, Reincarnated. So this is the brand new Dungeon Master screen for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So we've got the original one here. This came out, I want to say, back in January of 2015. If I recall correctly, or December of, actually I think it may have been December of 2014, but it came out early on in D&D 5th edition's lifespan. So I guess this new screen is supposed to be based off of feedback from consumers. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to open this up, have a look at it, and I'm going to do a comparison, direct comparison between the new screen and the previous one and see which one I like best. So first thing I'll do is I'll get the plastic off of this and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got the plastic pretty well off here. I want my first look to be at this screen to be done on video to get my honest initial reactions. So the first thing that I'm interested in is what's going to be on the inside of this this sleeve here. This is just a paper sleeve. I'm hoping there's something, just because the previous one had like this poster with Acerak for D&D Adventures League. So I'm kind of hoping there's something, but probably not. Let's have a look. Nah, it's just blank. That's kind of unfortunate. I would have liked to have had another, maybe updated poster, but that's okay. I always keep these anyway, so I'll still have this for when I store this on my shelf. And here we have the 4-paneled screen. So I'm only going to look at the outside first. You got the D&D logo there, and that is a really nice looking red dragon. Poor guy there. Don't think he's going to have the best day ever. And then it's got the Dungeons & Dragons name and logo on the other corner there, so that's kind of cool. So now let's flip it over and have a look at the contents. So this is something that I'm going to be kind of interested in, just to see what differences they have. So we'll just open it up here. Alright, and I think what I'm going to do is just pick this up. Alright, so our first little bit here has actions in combat. Let's see if I can bring that up a little bit higher up here. Just kind of fold this for now. It's also got the artwork with like the line, cone, cube, sphere for spellcasting, which is kind of neat. But it's got the actions in combat, so we got attack, cast a spell, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, ready, search, use a magic item, use an object, and use a special ability. Then on here, we actually got some pretty cool stuff, so I'm just going to see if I can zoom in. Oh, there we go. So it's got the information for long jump and high jumps, which actually would have come in handy during my last D&D Adventures League session, because jumping was something that had kind of come up there. So it's kind of interesting. So like move 10 plus feet and jump a number of feet up to your strength score. When you make a standing long jump, you leap only half that distance. So it goes over that, which is kind of cool. It's got the rules for suffocating and the rules for concentration. So how to what concentration ensues, which again is pretty handy. And then the things you can do on your turn, so move up to your speed, take one action, communicate with speech, gestures, or both, and interact with one object or feature of the environment. As you move or take your action to interact with the second object, take the use an object action. So there you go, that's that. Now the next panel is, just zoom back out here. Alright, so the next panel is all the conditions, so this is something that we're pretty familiar with. Blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, grappled, incapacitated, invisible, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned. And then we've got prone, restrained, stunned, unconscious, and exhaustion. So that's pretty cool. And then we've got over here, and we'll zoom back in. So here we've got things like setting a DC for difficulty class, tracking DCs for, I guess, tracking enemies or creatures as you go about, damage by level and severity. So that's kind of good, I guess, a good improvisational tool. Object hit points with some examples, so like bottles, chests, barrels, carts, and object armor class, which is again pretty interesting, pretty useful if you're going to be attacking objects. Especially where one of my players in Adventures League managed to get the longsword Shatter Spike, which automatically crits on objects, so I suspect that I'll be using the hit points and armor class charts for objects there. Then you got your skills and associated abilities, so all the different skills that are there. And then on the last panel, just have travel pace, services, obscured areas, and examples. So like creatures have disadvantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight if you're lightly obscured. And examples of lightly obscured is like dim light, patchy, fog, moderate, and stuff like that. Then you've got encounter distance, and the different environmental effects that can have impact on encounter distance. Then up here, you've got cover, light sources, and then finally you've got food, drink, and lodging costs. So that's actually pretty cool. I actually like that quite a bit, because this is something that, again, you're probably going to end up having to flip through a book for. So overall, I think these are pretty useful charts. We'll just zoom back out here. So what I want to do is actually just compare the two screens directly. So I'm just going to set up the other DM screen as well, and we'll have a look at them kind of both side by side. So let me just get that set up, and I'll be right back. Alright, so here we have the two screens, side by side for direct comparison. And I'm going to be honest, just kind of looking at these while I was setting them up, I'm surprised by how much stuff is actually duplicated from the original screen to the DM screen Reincarnated. So the things that are the same, or that appear on both, is the conditions, which is the exact same on both, takes up the exact same amount of space, use the same artwork and everything. Also duplicated between the two screens is the cover information, which we have there and there. We have light sources, which appears on both screens as well. In addition to that, we've got skills and associated abilities, which is there and there. Setting a DC, which is directly like bottom of this screen, top of this one. And travel pace appears on both. Obscured areas, which we have here, appears on both. And encounter distance, which we have here, appears on both, in addition to, I think I already went over cover, light, and all that stuff. So the biggest differences really are on this screen. We have the DM screen Reincarnated. The new things that were added were tracking DCs. We have also the object hit points and the object armor class, which is new. That doesn't appear on the original screen, but everything else that's on this panel is on the original screen. And then on this one we have the food, drink, and lodging chart, which is not something that was on the original screen. So that was something that was missing there. As you can see, it's not on the original screen. So the food, drink, and lodging is something that is brand new. So that's one of the new things that appears on here. And having that removed, we have lost the Something Happens, which is just a series of events, which I'll be honest, I never really used, or the Quick Finds are something, again, that I've never really used either. So those are two things that, you know, I always kind of skipped over. So that's that. Like I said, these two are the exact same, but this panel is completely different. So on the original screen, it's all taken up with the NPC information, like their characteristics, ideals, bonds, flaws, and the name generator. And I'll be honest, this name generator is something that I did use quite a bit, because I'm awful with names. And in its place, you have the actions in combat, long jump, high jump, suffocation, concentration, and the things you can do on your turn. So one of the things that I was actually really kind of surprised by was just how much of the original Dungeon Master screen carried over to the new DM screen Reincarnated. The other big thing that I noticed, if you'll take a look, is it seems like the original screen was a lot more colorful. So if you're into sort of like the aesthetic side of things, then this one has just a lot more color on it. Stuff that kind of pops out a little bit more, like the Deck of Many Things, or, you know, the adventurers down here. Whereas this screen is a little bit more subdued. So there is like some art sort of in the middle here in the background, but other than that, you know, it's kind of very subdued colors. But that's more of an aesthetic thing. We do have the green devil face over here, so anybody running Tomb of Annihilation or familiar with Tomb of Horrors, nice little Easter egg, you could say, there. And I do like the size comparison. I don't know how much this would actually really be used necessarily in a game, but I've always liked, you know, the size comparison charts, so I'm kind of happy to have that there, and that's totally fine. But other than that, so those are the big major differences between the two. So overall, which of these two screens do I like the most? I gotta be honest, I still really like the original screen, the one that came out within the first few months of 5th edition being released. I don't know why, I like this one. I like the colors, I like the art on the front, which again just seems a bit more colorful. You're attacking, like, you know, the red dragon and its volcano layer, you know, mound of treasure, you got the characters attacking it, it just, you know, you got kobolds over there. It's just a really nice looking screen. That said, the artwork on the front of the DM screen Reincarnated is also really nice. So I'll just flip that over. So I do really like this red dragon as well, and I'll be honest, I actually like the way that this dragon looks better than that dragon. I just think overall the older screen has a bit more color to it, and things just kind of pop out a little bit more. Overall though, there's a lot of useful information that I can see on this screen that is going to come in handy. When I was running Adventures League, like I mentioned before, somebody wanted to do jumping, so and actually the session that I ran a few days before that, just one of my home games, the jumping information came up in there as well, so I had to look it up both times. So having it on the screen is pretty cool. Having things like the object, hit points, and armor class is also something that I think is really useful, because in my Adventurers League game, and one of my players ended up getting a magical longsword that is more effective against items, so it deals like automatic crits against items. So it's kind of cool to have this information, because I'm pretty sure it's going to end up coming up fairly often. So like the fragile and resilient hit points is pretty cool, and having the armor class is also quite useful. And I do like having the food, drink, and lodging information on there, because that's something that you know, comes up just often enough that you have to look it up, but it doesn't seem to come up frequently enough that you generally have, you know, this information memorized, or at least I don't. So having this here on the screen is very helpful, and I think overall this is a really nice screen. I don't think you could go wrong picking up the DM screen Reincarnated, and I'll be honest, I think it's probably going to completely replace the original DM screen. I don't think they're going to continue to produce that one. So having the new DM screen Reincarnated, as they're calling it, it's a nice screen. There's a lot of useful information on there that I think will come in really handy, and having things like the, you know, actions in combat, I think is going to be especially useful to newer dungeon masters or people that are newer to the D&D 5th edition game, or new to D&D in general. So I think that'll come in pretty handy, and overall this is a really nice screen. I don't think it fully replaces the original as far as I'm concerned, especially where I made pretty decent use of the NPC information, the random NPC information. So I actually liked having that. But I think I'm going to alternate these screens, honestly, when I go to use them. I'm looking forward to taking this to my next Adventurers League session that I run, and seeing just how much I actually consult the screen itself. So, those are my thoughts. Those are my opinions. Like I said, you can't go wrong with the new one. It is a wonderful screen. There's a lot of great information on there. So if you're looking to get a Dungeon Master screen, this is probably the only one you're going to be able to get at this point anyway, but it's definitely worth picking up. So there you go. Now, what I'd like to know is, for any of you guys that are watching this, if you have one of these DM screens, what were your thoughts on the original one that had come out back when the early days of 5th edition? Do you like that screen? Do you hate that screen? Do you like what's on this one better? Which one do you think you'd find more useful? And just one last sort of side note, actually, as well, is I just kind of show off this is my Elemental Evil Dungeon Master screen. So most of this is information that's kind of pertinent to the actual campaign itself, but it does have the conditions on there, and it's obvious that this condition artwork is the default. Like, this is taken from the player's handbook, so I have these condition charts on 3 different screens now, so they're one of the more things that I would use the most. So there you go. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on the DM screens, which ones you like, which ones you prefer, and let me know if there's any information that's not on the DM screen Reincarnated that you would have liked to have seen on there. For example, if they could have taken away the art and shorten these up a bit to have another column, what do you think would be a useful thing to have on there? So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Funding for this channel is provided by the awesome support of my patrons on my Patreon page. And I'd like to provide a special thanks to Kennedy S. and David L. You guys really help make this possible for me to continue making these kinds of videos. So thank you to everyone who contributes. You guys are all awesome, and special thanks to David L. and Kennedy S. You guys rock.